Hartman's Community Centre, Milton, Ontario, Canada. Flicker their tongues and begin bellowing when they hear that boom. Ida herself has exhausted her venom system by this time, but the quills and stingers all over her body stay poised in position. She is no scholarly little dragoness in this state. Needless to say, her sisters are in a similar state of excitement. In a long, sinuous hill near Holland, a tremor in the ground begins rattling, rattle, thump, a beat in perfect harmony with the drum beat in Canada. The snow begins to melt from the surface of the hill, and waves of heat start to pulse from the core of the hill. The stones begin to rattle and rise and fall to the beat of the throbbing ground. Then cracks appear along the surface of the ground, red hot, revealing the glowing interior of the ground. A flash of light and red-hot rock erupts from the hill and vanishes and dissipates into the air. The hill cools and is silent once more. In the air, the reawakened spirit of a serpent wends her way towards the drumbeat of a Canadian cavern. Back in the ceremonial cavern, Ida and her sisters add a new dimension to the serpent-dragon dance. Leaping and bounding on all four legs, they hop over the undulating, coiling, slithering serpents beneath them. As they land on the other side of a band of serpents, they stand up tall on their hind legs, take a few steps forward, throw out their wings, and roar louder than they've ever roared before in their life. They then spin on one taloned foot and coil over their neck and coil into a tight spiral as they can force their bodies into. They then collapse back into the floor where they straighten out again. The dance slides forward, and on the next boom the serpent coil up on themselves and try to swallow their tails. And her sisters try likewise and sink their jaws over fully extended tail stingers. Their tails convulse and try to pump non-existent venom out of the stinger. Although they no doubt tore flesh, they're too caught up in the dance to notice. At this time, the frozen statue of His, Aurelio King in actuality, senses that a power is present in the cavern. Being bonded to His, he is attuned to the existence of deities, and this power is throbbing through the very atoms that make up his stone. The deity senses is not both alien and familiar, and she's not His. She's much more powerful than His. He wants to roar out a warning to the dragon crowds, but it's just a frozen, mute statue. Thus all he can do is wait. The serpent spirit was not the great serpent, but she was one of his first 6 descendants. Although she represented raw primal power, the knowledge of how to use that power was not hers. Thus, as her invisible coils looped about the cavern, she searched for the means to bring back her own tribe. Coiling over to the statue of His, she learned the arts of metamorphosis and transformation of that deity. Being an ancient deity, the serpent spirit was more powerful than His and the other 4 dragon gods and goddesses. She learned and she bided her time. At the same time, the statue of His started to warm and throb to the beat of that drum. Its eyes started to glow brighter as the ancient serpent spirit channeled all the powers of His and the other dragon deities into herself. Under normal circumstances, the crowds of dragons and serpents and other creatures may have sensed her existence, but in the fever of the dance, they were too busy writhing and coiling on the floor to notice only Aurelio the statue knew, and he probably was stunned senseless with all the divine powers that were being channeled through him. Had the dragons quit the dance right there and then, probably nothing more would have happened. The spirit would have gone back to her fossilized body in Emin and gone back to sleep for another 10 million years. But Ida had to spoil things. As she and her sisters continued to bound over the serpent circle, she swung out her wings as she bounded over the innermost band of serpents, and this caused her to overshoot and glide and slide towards the edge of the sacred pool. She was coming in fast and slid right over the low protective barrier set at the rim of the pool. Her tail and torso slid over the edge, and as her four limbs clawed for purchase on the barrier, her neck and head snapped forward. This caused the ancient serpent's skull to fly off her head and tumble into the yellow liquid below her. Her tail was only a few feet from the surface of the liquid, and drops of yellow goo spattered onto her tip. At this point, the crowd of dragons all froze and stared at her, and at the liquid below her. Slowly the skull sank into the liquid and dissolved. The pool began to boil, and the yellow liquid turned reddish black. At the same time, the yellow pus on Ida's tail turned red-black and sank into the surface of her skin.